Hey everybody, here to share with you a little bit about Questeros and talk a little bit about tarot decks in general. So Questeros, as you may have seen from the Facebook group and posts that I've been putting on, it's a fantasy themed tarot deck that is also going to be designed as a trick-taking card game for 2 to 6 players and as a solitaire game for 1 player. And it could also have some versatility as a fate deck for popular role-playing games. But let's take a look at some of the prototype cards that we've established here. This is Questeros. This is the potential box for the game. I'll just move this aside. And there's been a little bit of feedback about the logo, but I'm very fond of this, what we call a palindrome. And so what a palindrome is it's a not only reversible, but also upside down logo. So you can see there Questeros. And I understand it's not easy to read at first glance, but the thing about tarot decks is they're never easy to read. And I want that to be kind of symbolic in the title of the game itself. As disheartening as that might be for some other designers out there who don't particularly like the font or certain retailers, I think it really works well with the idea of this being a different type of card game and a different type of board game. So you can see how it works well on each of the angles. Do you want to put it in your shelf with the demon up? Do you want to put it in your shelf with Eero the goblin up? That's all up to you. All right, and then still deciding how exactly to do the box, but as it stands right now, I just have Questeros on each side, and might be some consideration of flipping this the other way and having the fortress on one side and the kind of dark forest on the other. So still working with that. And of course the back of the box would be a little bit more a better design there, but still describe the game. So you can see there a multiplayer trick-taking game, solitaire quest game, fully functional tarot divination deck, and a fate deck for role-play in-games. Typo there. All right, but it'll come in a magnetic flip box, so this will magnetically shut. This is just a prototype box right now, but I'll show you again. I've unboxed this once before, but now that we have a prototype, it'll be easier to show you. It'll come with a score pad, so this will be a score pad for the multiplayer game only. And so there'll be for 2 to 6 players, there'll be a 6-player chart in here that you can use to track quests that are bid and won. And of course the rule book, this will be a little bit larger, probably a 32-page rule book that will be the size of a tarot card. But right now I just had this as a preliminary just to get a feel for it. And of course the Questeros card. So there's the palindrome again. Flip it over, Questeros. Love how that feels in the deck. These are cards made from Print and Play Ad Magic. This is a rather pricey deck, but it does give me a good idea of how the images will look on the card, how the icons will look on the card. I might space some things out a bit differently, but it just really helps give a better feel than just the plain white cards I was playing with before. And of course, Eero the Goblin doesn't have a number, but he's the jester or the fool of the deck. So he's kind of iconographed on the box, and he will be presented actually in a few of the cards, including the introductory suits. All right. And then there'll be some reminder cards for the multiplayer game. That's what these are for. But we'll set all those aside. So in a tarot deck, there are major arcana, which are the quest cards in Questeros. I've got an extra gesture printed there because I love them so much. And then there are the minor arcana, which originally I was considering doing icons only, but after thinking about it for some time, we're going to go full art on every single card, just like a traditional tarot deck would do. But let's talk a little bit about tarot for those of you who aren't familiar. Maybe we'll fan out some of the art here. You can see some of that while I talk. And I'll read some of the history of tarot. You have a history lesson today about tarot decks. So the origins of the tarot are not known, but evidence does suggest that the cards, as we recognize them, have been in existence since the 15th century. The first set of tarot cards that we know of, the Visconti Sforza pack, is Italian in origin. The second, or more complete set, is the Charles VI pack, named after the King of France at that time, although that deck may have been originated in Italy. And then the earliest evidence of playing cards in existence actually dates back to the 9th century China. So there are those who speculate that medieval tarot cards could have actually been placed based on those earlier playing cards. Now, tarot cards are thought to have been used in card games known as tarocchi. The only firm evidence that we have that they were used to divine the future dates from the 18th century, although there is fragmentary evidence to show that they may have been used for this purpose much earlier. The symbolic images on these tarot cards reflect the medieval and Renaissance European cultures from which they emerged. I'm not talking about my cards, mind you, the original cards that are out there. There are many multicultural influences in Renaissance Europe, including Hermetic thought from ancient Egypt and Greece, and other divination systems, such as astrology and the Kabbalah, a school of thought in Jewish mysticism. All these belief systems would have followers at the time, and the images on the tarot reflect that. However, though the cards are clearly rooted in the ancient past, there is a timeless quality to the symbolism that speaks to people across cultures today and ensures their continued popularity. And that's part of why I'm developing a new tarot deck, and I know people are doing it all the time. Actually, if you look up tarot decks on Kickstarter, which is the crowdfunding platform I plan to use, you'll see all kinds. The difference with mine is that I want to take it back to its roots of tarocchi, a trick-taking card game, obviously with a spin of my own, and simplify the scoring system a bit, because when I was reading through the full set of tarocchi, it is quite complex how the rules work. And I wanted to add that fantasy element that really drives home that D&D-esque feel, that swords and sorcery and magic and mysticism of the fantasy worlds that I love so much. So I'm not going to talk about the actual trick-taking card game today. What I'm going to tell you about is maybe just an example of how a tarot deck could work. So we're going to do the example of the 3-card spread. There's many different ways that you can do a tarot spread. You can always look them up online, and the game, of course, is going to come with an example in the rule book, but we're going to do an example right now. So these, again, are all the major arcana. Fantastic artwork. I'm just thrilled with the work that John DeCampos has done to put together every single piece of art. He and I worked closely to establish the concepts of the cards. I would sketch some of things out. He'd throw his ideas in. He'd add layers of fun and interesting elements to the original concepts that I sent his way. And then, of course, I'll shuffle in the minor arcana, which will be full art as time progresses. So let me just shuffle these up, and we're going to do an example of a 3-card spread. Now, 3-card spread, maybe I'll read about it as I shuffle these up, because you're going to give them a good shuffle. Just different thoughts on how you should shuffle as well. Ruffle shuffle is not necessarily it. Doing it this way 7 or 8 times usually is sufficient. But one of the simplest layouts is this 3-card spread. The first card is selected and placed face up, and it represents the past. So we'll shuffle these out, and we're going to pretend to do a spread today. Now, I'm not a talented reader by any means, but we're just going to play along with it for this moment in time and show you what we have. So the first card we have is selected and placed face up. This represents the past. So right now we have the Page of Cups. The second card is taken and placed on the right of the first card, and this represents the present. So we have here I'll slide these down so you can see them even though it's not full art. The 10 of Cups, the Page of Cups. All right, and then the third card represents the future. So we have the Page of Pentacles. So I didn't get any of John's fantastic artwork in this particular spread, but that's okay, because the minor arcana do have important things to share as well. Your fate is not entirely told in the quest cards. So then what you would do is you would look at how the past, the present, and the future might tie in together. So if I were to look up the Page of Cups, and of course, if you were playing with these, you would eventually memorize some of this stuff if you were a good reader, as I've seen some people do. But for example, the Page of Cups, if I look at my past, it's about being sensitive, sympathetic, kind, imaginative, poetic, lazy, and a daydreamer. And so the card may suggest a character who displays these qualities, or infer that these characteristics need to be developed within ourselves. So if I was reading about myself here, I might think that perhaps in the past I maybe was either too sensitive or too sympathetic, or maybe not enough. I guess I'd have to kind of divulge into my personality, or if I was reading for somebody else, I might have to get a sense of who they are and kind of understand that if this card represents if they do something too much or perhaps not enough. But either way, that is the past. Sensitive, sympathetic, kind, imaginative, poetic, lazy, daydreamer. In some cases, that might be something I do too much. Now we would look to the present. So the present, we have a 10 of Cups. This is about lasting happiness, joy, fulfillment, emotional stability, and a fortunate outcome. So this is talking about the present right now. It's representing the here and the now. And I think this ties closely with how I feel about things right now. I think living where I live, away from some of the political turmoil, and in a smaller town where the pandemic that rages across the world is kind of isolated where I am. I feel a sense of happiness and joy in the job that I do now, and how it gives me the time to focus on stuff like this that I love so much. So I could, you can always relate the cards to your own situation, I think. But that would be the present. Yeah, and then we go on to the Page of Pentacles. Now, the future can be scary, and who knows what the future could hold, right? So the Page of Pentacles, let's see what that indicates. The Page of Pentacles is about diligent, reliable, mature, loyal, steady, hardworking, and responsible. That all sounds like good stuff, doesn't it? The page may represent a youthful person who displays those qualities or highlight the need to nurture those qualities in ourselves. So if I were looking at the spread, maybe I was sympathetic and kind in the past. That was my history, and that brought me joy and happiness in the present. But maybe I have to work a little bit harder or be a little bit more responsible in the future if I want to be successful. I mean, you can read these cards any way as you wish, but the important thing is to know that in Questeros, you can use this deck as a complete and fully functional tarot deck, above and beyond the role that it has as a trick-taking card game, which will be shared in a future video of this. So I wanted to share that with you, let you see some of the cards up close, talk a little bit about tarot's history, and just understand that this deck will be a lot more than just a board game or just a card game or just a solo solitaire game. It's multi-purpose, and just really hope that you help us share this. We're probably not going to do anything on Kickstarter till February, maybe March. It all depends on what's happening between now and then. But the art is getting fleshed out. We've got all of the Page to King cards covered in every suit, probably by the end of this month, if not earlier. And so once that's done, I'll get full prototype decks made for reviewers and kind of flesh out the rule book for them to try the game itself, but also embellish the rule book to include the descriptions of the major arcana or quest cards, as they're called in Questeros, and the minor arcana or basic cards. And they'll be renamed because once these have full art, the cups will actually turn into the clerics, for example, or the monks, or the swords will turn into fighters, or the pentacles will turn into thieves or rogues. So still lots changing with it, but it's evolving quite nicely, and I'm absolutely thrilled with where Questeros is going, and can't wait to see it eventually hit people's tables at some point in the future. But all good things take time and patience to develop, and so I don't want to rush into this too fast. I've loved where it's gone so far, and I'm willing to take the time to develop it to where it needs to go. So thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.